Hello, everyone. This is Professor Anthony Disson at Stockton University, wanting to share some information about the role that nutrition can play for the cancer survivor, whether somebody is a recent survivor or a long-term survivor. The amount of evidence and information available to us that tells us the primary importance of food and nutrition in maintaining health and preventing recurrence is absolutely incredible. When it comes to understanding the role that nutrition plays in the cancer process, there are a number of different factors that diets can play. What I want to share with you today is just a little bit of information to understand how much our nutrition, our environment, how much these things impact our risk. So let me move my face out of the way here. So there are three major areas that we can think of. And of course, this is quite simple, but three major influences when it comes to our cancer risk, either initial risk or future risk for something like recurrence. Of course, genetics plays a factor, but as we will see, it is actually the smallest of all of these three factors. Environment, because of things like the, pollution we might be exposed to or radiation we might be exposed to. Those sorts of things are very important. But the most important one is lifestyle. And I will show you some information to show that. And the most exciting thing about this is if lifestyle is the thing we are most in control of, and lifestyle is the factor that has the greatest influence, well, that means the thing that we have the greatest control over has the greatest potentially protective quality when it comes to maintaining health and preventing recurrence for people. So when we see the way that genes have a risk, that genes are not innocuous when it comes to cancer risk, but they're only about 5 to 10% of our risk, which means environment, which is both environment and lifestyle, that is the overwhelming majority of cancer risk for most people. But let's break this down a little bit more. As we can see, certain types of cancers are more influenced by genetic risk. So things like testicular cancer, laryngeal cancer, thyroid cancer, genes seem to play a little bit of a larger role than in something like breast or prostate or colorectal cancer. But as you can see, overall risk is still less than 10%. So how does environment then come in? And what do we mean by environment? So some things like tobacco. So the use of tobacco products, which is not only smoking, but chewing tobacco and even vaping, up to a third of our risk for cancer as a whole. So as a general health condition, of course, certain cancers are more influenced or less by tobacco usage, but as a whole, cancer risk, almost a third of our risk, quarter to a third of our risk is tobacco. But look at diet, 30 to 35%. That's more than tobacco. That's more than infections. So infections might be things like HPV and other types of infectious agents, hepatitis C, that have been associated with cancer risk, more than our weight status, although we could say that any risk from obesity, diet is the number one influence on our body weight, and all other types of environmental risk put together. So if you could only do one thing, and I'm not saying that anybody should only do one thing, but technically, if you had to say which is the more important thing, focusing on reducing tobacco or stopping tobacco, or focusing on diet, well, technically diet's the most influential one. So imagine if someone stopped using tobacco products and improved their diet, that's 50 to 60% of their risk just in those two things. And I find that very exciting because it shows us just how much, again, our personal life's choices play a role. Now, different types of cancer are influenced more or less by dietary choices. So cancer as a whole, again, about 35% of our risk. But as we can see, different cancers respond more in terms of risk to diet. So lung cancer, which a lot of people are surprised that diet has anything to do with lung cancer, but 20% is still significant, is due to dietary choices. But then look at something like colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, gallbladder cancer, breast cancer, endometrial cancer. 50, 70, 75% of our risk is just attributed to diet. So for example, men for prostate cancer risk, 3/4 of our risk for developing prostate cancer is just diet. That doesn't even include all of the other things. And so we have powerful, powerful medicine at our disposal when we focus on our diet. And obesity and weight status, again, we can see a number of different types of cancers that are influenced by this. But since our dietary choices very much influence our weight status, again, we can see that if someone could only focus on one area, nutrition is the way to go. So what does a healthy diet look like when it comes to reducing cancer risk, either for initial diagnosis or prevention of recurrence? So number one, maintain a healthy body weight. Basically what this is referring to, and this kind of comes down to 2 and 3 a little bit, is we want to make sure that the foods that we are eating and the activity that we are doing every day is helping to keep us at a relatively healthy body weight. There are a number of things that can influence body weight. The most, I think, helpful measure for whether or not my body weight is protecting me or putting me at risk for different types of cancer is looking at our waist circumference. And this is something you can have done at a physical. This is something any physician, nurse, or dietitian can do. Most healthcare professionals can do this, but it's literally to use a tape measure and to go from my belly button around to measure that region of my waist, of my belly. And there are, based on our age and gender, different measurements we want to go by. So if that's something you would like to have measured, again, you can ask any healthcare provider to do this for you. Know your waist measurement. If you have a healthy waist measurement, overall that puts you at a very low risk for cancer associated with weight. So if you're not sure what your waist measurement is, again, next time you see a healthcare professional have a physical, ask them to check that for you. It can be very telling. 2, be physically active. What does that mean? It means to put our bodies into constant motion. This doesn't have to mean gym, running, although those are great if you happen to enjoy those. It's just moving the body. Research is showing that moving every hour, if not every half hour, is powerfully protective for reducing cancer risk. More moderate to high intensity physical activity where it really gets our heart rate up can be great too. But just being in motion, sitting for an hour or more is being associated not just with cancer risk, but with heart disease risk as well. So finding reasons to keep standing up and doing something, going for a walk. There's all sorts of different types of physical activity, but finding an opportunity to be active at least bare minimum 30 minutes a day, every day, has been shown to be very protective. Number 3, and this ties back up into number 1, limit consumption of energy-dense foods, which basically means foods that carry a lot of calories, and sweetened beverages. There is no need for a sweetened beverage. Really, if we're going to be honest here, the only thing we should be drinking is water. Tea and coffee are fine, but I shouldn't be adding sugar to them. Juices, fruit juices, teas that have sugar added to them, they serve no health purpose, and all they do is add extra calories to our diet, which can be problematic for healthy weight management. So tea, coffee, water. If we're going to be very, very stringent here, those are the 3 beverages. Anything else can be possibly concerning. And then energy-dense foods, what does that mean? That means foods that pound for pound, bite for bite, carry greater calories than those who don't. What foods are the lowest energy density, which would basically mean the foods we should eat the most? All fruits, all vegetables, all whole grains, all beans, peas, and lentils. Those are the most energy dilute foods, those basic 4, fruits, veggies, grains, and legumes. Eat as much of those as you can. They are rich in nutrition, but they're low in calories. Meat, poultry, pork, eggs, fish, dairy, processed foods with a lot of oil in them, these start to become much more calorie dense, energy dense, which means that they're providing less nutrition for every calorie that they're giving us. So those are the foods we really want to limit, avoid, greatly restrict. Number 4, eat unprocessed foods, high fiber foods, which basically goes back to fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans. As many of them as we can get in each day. They're full of nutrition. They're full of the type of antioxidants and phytochemicals that actually help to literally fight cancer cells. And they are sometimes referred to as functional foods because it means that they have a function in the body that goes beyond just their nutrition. If I can give you an example. We look at something like cabbage, red, green, all sorts of types of cabbage. Yes, it has nutrition in it, which is very important, but it is also functional food, and that it goes even beyond its nutrition to being one of the most cancer-fighting foods out there. The most cancer-fighting food, garlic. Regular, just, pull out a bulb of garlic, peel it out. Garlic has been shown to be the most cancer-fighting food for most types of cancer. So it has a function beyond just its nutrition. Recommendation number 5, limit intake of red meat and avoid processed meats. Whether we're talking about cancer or heart disease or type 2 diabetes, it comes up every single time. Eat as little to no red meat as possible. And red meat is more than just beef. There are many foods that are considered red meat. So, really look to see, what red meats might you be eating? As little to none as possible, and 0 processed meat. What is processed meat? Bacon, lunch meat, sausage, hot dogs, cold cuts, deli meats, those sorts of things. The World Health Organization has designated processed meats as a group 1 carcinogen. It is absolutely cancer causing. Group 1A carcinogen. There is no safe amount. There is no amount of those foods we can take in that don't increase our risk for cancer. And no, it doesn't matter whether it's turkey bacon. It doesn't matter whether it's chicken. It doesn't matter if it's bacon, if it's sausage, if it's a hot dog. It doesn't matter whether it's organic or not. It doesn't matter if it's nitrate free or not. 0. Do not eat them. Find ways that you can take them completely out of your diet. They are one of the most proven cancer-causing foods out there. There's a lot of reasons why. Part of it is the nitrites that are within these foods naturally. When red meat especially, but any type of meat, any muscle cooks, it produces something called heterocyclic amines, or HCAs. These are very carcinogenic. And when meat especially fumes, like the fumes that rise up from a grill, those are full of what are called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. This is why diet can actually influence lung cancer risk, because it's been shown that people who breathe in the fumes from grills and from fryers, that fume carries these PAHs and it causes lung cancer. So limit as much as possible, if not outright avoid red meat, and absolutely 100% no processed meat. Limit alcohol. There are a lot of reasons why alcohol is associated with an increased risk of many types of cancer. What does that mean? No more than 1 drink a day for women, no more than 2 drinks a day for men. The reason for the difference is men tend to make more of a compound called alcohol dehydrogenase, which helps it to get out of the body more quickly. But really, little to no alcohol. There is no health benefit need, especially when it comes to cancer, to alcohol. So the big recommendation for alcohol and cancer risk is if you don't currently drink, don't start. If you do currently drink, limit it to no more than 1 to 2 drinks a day maximum. Limit salt. There's a lot of research showing that foods high in salt are especially associated with stomach and other types of gastric cancers. And avoid grains and beans that have become moldy. So basically, this is talking about expired food. Now, there's a lot of discussion in the United States right now about what expired really means. There's plenty of food that is sold at the grocery stores that once it hits that expiration date, they throw away, that is still perfectly edible and good. But certainly once food has spoiled, that's a problem. And so if you look at bread, if you look at rice or corn or oats or beans or anything like that, and they look a little fuzzy or moldy, don't wash it, don't cut it away, just throw it out altogether. Those molds can contain toxins that can be very carcinogenic. And then their last recommendation from the American Institute of Cancer Research is to choose food over supplements. What does that mean? We need to be getting our nutrition from food. Supplements can be good, but they are not a replacement for food. And in some cases, certain supplements like vitamin A and vitamin E and folate supplements have actually been shown to increase our risk for cancer. So if you take supplements right now and you're not really sure why, or they weren't really prescribed you by a physician or a dietitian or somebody with a medical and a health background, you may want to question whether they're necessary or not. If more than anything else, they just tend to be very unbeneficial, but they can be problematic. So if you want to get calcium, you want to get it from your greens, get it from food. And if you're looking for iron, Get it from lentils. Get it from food. Don't get it from a calcium supplement or an iron supplement. Special recommendations that AICR puts out also. Women who have children, if possible, should breastfeed as opposed to bottle feed when that is available to them. The reason why is that women who breastfeed do have significantly lower rates of breast cancer. And this is the most important one here. Cancer survivors should follow the same 8 recommendations that AICR puts out regarding initial prevention of cancer. So unfortunately, some healthcare providers, some oncologists tell their survivors that it doesn't matter, that they can eat whatever they want, it won't play an influence. Please know that that's not true. That these same 8 recommendations that would help someone who has never had cancer dramatically lower their risk for cancer are the same 8 recommendations that people who have had cancer should follow immediately to prevent recurrence of cancer. If I can throw just a couple specifics in, I picked here some of the types of cancer that are the leading causes of cancer-related death within the United States. Maybe one of these is a type of cancer you or someone you know has experienced, maybe not. What I'm hoping you will see here is the patterns that arise. So these are the cancers that are, for men and women in the United States, that are the most common causes of cancer-related death. So for both men and women, lung cancer is a major cause of cancer-related death. What do we know that nutrition can play a role in? As I was saying before, fried and grilling, especially meat, releases those polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that causes severe inflammation and damage within the respiratory tract. And again, processed meat, stay away, stay away, stay away, and salt. Not only is salt associated with lung cancer risk, it's also, again, associated with stomach cancer, colon and rectal cancer, but also things that we may not initially think of: testicular cancer, bladder cancer, pancreatic cancer, kidney cancer, leukemia, from excessive salt within the diet. So again, men and women, colorectal cancer is very heavily associated with nutrition. And as we looked at before, 70 to even some cases 75% of our risk is associated with just nutrition alone. Again, grilled and fried meat, especially red meat, is highly associated with colorectal cancer. Eating lots of fiber is one of the most important things we can do to prevent colorectal cancer or to prevent recurrence of colorectal cancer, because it helps to lower the pH of our colon because of how those good bacteria within our colon ferment that fiber. So lots and lots and lots and lots of fiber. IGF-1 is a growth compound within the body that is associated with colon cancer. It is stimulated by a lot of dairy. So for most people, especially as we age, getting rid of dairy and replacing it with non-dairy options like soy milk or coconut milk or almond milk or oat milk or hemp milk, or all these amazing non-dairy options now, focus on those. And bile acids. When bile moves through the digestive system and it gets lower into the colon, it can be carcinogenic. Diets that are higher in fiber and lower in fat help to prevent this from happening. So less fat and lots of fiber. Prostate cancer, again, grilled and deep fried foods, as again, notice these patterns are highly associated with prostate cancer. Again, high intakes of dairy, especially in men, high intakes of dairy, high intakes of calcium are associated with increased risk for prostate cancer. Interestingly, eggs and chicken and poultry are also heavily associated, not just with prostate cancer, but with the more lethal forms of prostate cancer. So, and part of this is because of choline, which is a naturally occurring amino acid within eggs and poultry. So another reason why we really want to focus on things like beans and peas and lentils for our protein is because they don't contain that choline content and help to keep the prostate healthy. Again, processed meat, stay away. And again, meat in general tends to be a problem. But look, this is what a lot of people tell us is manly food, right? Deep fried food, burgers, steaks, chicken, all these sorts of things, lots of protein. It's literally killing us. Men are being literally killed by this idea of what manly food is. So we've really got to focus on what these problems are. For women, breast cancer, again, fried food, dairy-rich foods, eggs. Eating just 1 egg a day has been associated with a 3 times increased risk for breast cancer. partially, again, because of the choline content and the fat content. And for breast cancer in particular, saturated fat is very problematic for breast cancer because high intakes of saturated fat tend to raise cholesterol. Cholesterol is a precursor to estrogen, and many forms of breast cancer are driven by estrogen. So lower saturated fat intake can be very protective. Interestingly, this amazing physician, Dr. Dean Ornish, who came to fame many years ago for his work with heart disease, has been looking at cancer. And this was a study that he did in 2013, where they looked at men with prostate cancer and had them undergo the same program he gave men and women for heart disease for these men with prostate cancer. So high fiber, high vegetable, high grain, fruit, bean, pea, lentil diet, very low in fat. Again, moderate exercise like we were talking about with AICR, about 30 minutes a day of just moderate activity. But then he also made sure they underwent stress management. So they looked at about an hour a day of stress management, and this could be things like breathing exercises or gentle yoga or meditation or anything that helped a person feel more in control of their stress. And 1 day a week, they gave them group support to talk about their fears, their emotions, the emotional aspect of wellness. So these 4 things. And what they found when they looked at these men is that their telomeres got 10% longer over the 5 years of this study. Now, what does that mean? Telomeres are a part of our genes. And the longer our telomeres, typically that means genetically, biologically, we are younger and less likely to develop the types of DNA damage that can lead to cancer. So what does this mean? It means that following these exact guidelines, lots of fiber, less fat, more plants, less animal foods, about 30 or more minutes a day of some general activity, and then also bringing in things like stress and emotional healing and support and management, genetically help these men almost get younger, to be less associated with damage, to be more associated with youthfulness and health. Whereas the men that didn't undergo this, theirs got 3% shorter. So what this tells us is that these lifestyle choices, high fiber, low fat, high plant, low animal diet, with regular physical activity and stress and emotional management, down to our DNA, down to our genes, is helping us be healthier. So what does the overall dietary evidence tell us about how to prevent cancer and especially prevent recurrence? Eat lots of fiber, 50 grams or more a day of fiber. Eat much, much less animal-based food. So eggs, poultry, pork, chicken, beef, fish, dairy, eggs, all those things, as little as possible. Absolutely focusing instead on plant-based sources, beans, peas, lentils, nuts, and seeds. Eat less saturated fat. For most people, the limit should be about 10 to 15 grams a day. Where does most of our saturated fat come from? Cheese, butter, cream, red meat, egg yolks. So again, really getting those foods out of our diet as much as we can. Consume lots of different veggies, lots of different fruits that are full of different colors, because those give us those phytochemicals and those antioxidants we're looking for. Eat lots of cruciferous vegetables. I know I only talked about them briefly, but again, these are cabbage family vegetables. So cabbages, cauliflower, kale, mustard greens, Brussels sprouts, arugula, horseradish, regular radishes. Eat them every day. Doesn't have to be in tremendous quantities, but eat them every day. They're some of the most cancer-fighting foods. In addition, if you enjoy the flavor of garlic, throw garlic in your cooking every day. Absolutely avoid foods that are deep fried and foods that are char grilled, because again, if you notice, that was a pattern in many of these common forms of cancer. And absolutely zero intake, completely avoid processed meat and trans fats. Trans fats are hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated oils. So when you are looking at a food label, if it says it has hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil, put it back. Don't eat it if there's no amount that is safe. So this may seem like a lot, depending on how you currently eat. So pick one thing. Pick the easiest thing. All right, I can eat more colored fruits and vegetables. That's easy. I can buy different colored grapes and different colored apples and Start there. Or I like broccoli. I could eat a cup of broccoli every day. Do that. Start with the easiest thing. I could do 30 minutes of walking a day, sure. Build it from there. This isn't something anybody has to go home and do all these things right at once. But if you seriously want to have the lowest risk of recurrence, the lowest risk of cancer possible, this is your best medicine. This is your best lifestyle medicine that you can do. So use this list, pick the easiest one and start there. And when you've mastered that, go to the next one. And when you've mastered that, go to the next one. Focus on bringing in, focus on empowering yourself to make these choices. But it's going to be the thing that will give you the greatest protection against future risk. I hope that you have found this helpful. I hope that it has given you some information that you can bring into your own life, and be well.